She was the daughter of a billionaire, but she failed every single life lesson. Teachers gave up on her, friends mocked her, and even her father almost abandoned her. But what happened next left everyone speechless. In one of the most prestigious schools in Lagos, a girl with all the money in the world was about to lose everything. But she never imagined that the poorest woman in the school, the cleaner, held the secret to her future. And when she finally discovered it, her life would change forever. Amara Williams had everything money could buy. A mansion in Banana Island, Lagos, a chauffeur-driven Range Rover at just 18, designer gowns from Paris, and vacations in Dubai, like weekend trips to the village market. She was the only daughter of Chief Richard Williams, one of Nigeria's most powerful real estate moguls, a man whose face graced Forbes Africa and whose voice commanded boardrooms across continents. To the world, Amara was a princess, blessed beyond measure. But inside, she was broken. In the marble hallways of her private school, she was infamous for failing every exam. Mathematics mocked her with red ink. English essays returned with big Fs stamped in bold, and her science teachers barely looked at her anymore. Amara wasn't dumb, but she had grown up believing grades didn't matter. After all, what was algebra compared to her last name that could open any door? Teachers passed her just to avoid trouble with her billionaire father, while classmates whispered behind her back, "Money can't buy brains." At home, her father was not comfortable. Chief Richard was cold, sharp, and merciless. One evening, after another call from her school, he threw down his glass of whiskey and barked, "Amara, you are a disgrace. If you worked for me, you'd be fired. You think life will hand you success the way I hand you money? You are nothing without discipline." His words were more painful to her than she revealed, but Amara rolled her eyes and muttered, "I'm your daughter, not your employee." The silence that followed carried more weight than any slap. The next morning, Amara walked into school in her Gucci sneakers, her head high, her makeup flawless, and acting untouchable. Students stared, some in fear, others with envy, but no one dared to confront her. Yet one pair of eyes, steady and unflinching, watched her from the corner. A woman in her late 40s, in a faded blue cleaner's uniform, wiping the marble floor with slow, deliberate strokes. Amara didn't notice her. Why would she? She was just the cleaner, invisible in Amara's glittering world. But life was about to turn, and the very person she overlooked would become her greatest teacher. What secret could a cleaner possibly hold that would change the life of a billionaire's daughter? Amara's arrogance only grew. She mocked teachers, skipped assignments, and treated classmates like they were beneath her. One afternoon during a literature class, when asked about a novel, she smirked and said, "Why should I read it? I could buy the author if I wanted to." The class gasped. The teacher clenched her jaw, but no one dared challenge her. It was the same old routine. Fear of her father's wrath protected her. Or so she thought. The protection ended one night when Chief Richard stormed into her room. "Enough," he thundered. "Effective immediately. Your credit cards have been deactivated. Your driver is gone. You will take the school bus like every other child." Amara froze. For the first time, she realized her father wasn't bluffing. He meant every word. The following morning was torture. Students at the bus stopped and stared as Amara climbed in, stripped of her chauffeur and tinted SUV. Snickers and whispers filled the air. "Look, the queen has fallen," one boy muttered. She kept her head down, humiliated. That day she stumbled through classes like a shadow of her former self. And when she received her test papers, the humiliation deepened. Math 19%, history 22%, literature 11%. Her teachers didn't bother to hide their disappointment anymore. Even the school counselor sighed. "Amara, you're not just failing, you're sinking." She stormed out of the office, fighting tears. But as she slipped through the back corridor to avoid the crowd, she heard a soft voice humming. It was the cleaner again, scrubbing quietly. Amara glanced at her, ready to ignore, but froze when she heard the woman whisper, "The deepest well is found where no one bothers to dig." Amara frowned. "What did you say?" The cleaner raised her head, calm, unafraid. "Nothing you're ready to understand yet." Then she returned to her scrubbing, leaving Amara shaken. Who was this woman, and why did her words feel like a dagger wrapped in truth? That night, Amara tossed and turned in her silk bedsheets on her bed. Her father's harsh words echoed like thunder. "You are nothing without discipline." But strangely, it wasn't her father's anger that troubled her the most. It was the cleaner's soft, almost mystical words, The deepest well is found where no one bothers to dig. Why had that line pierced her so deeply? Why did it feel like an insult and a prophecy rolled into one? The next morning, she couldn't shake it off. She walked into school quieter than usual, her face bare of its usual arrogance. During lunch, she deliberately took the back corridor again, and there she was, the cleaner, bent over, wiping the floors near the science wing of the school. Amara stopped, crossed her arms, and asked, "You, yesterday, what did you mean?" The woman straightened slowly. Her eyes, though tired, had a sharpness that could cut glass. "Child, you have been drinking from shallow streams, pretty sparkling streams, but empty. One day you will thirst for real water, and only then will you understand my words." Amara rolled her eyes, forcing a laugh, but her chest tightened. Who was this woman? Why did her presence feel heavier than any teacher she'd ever known? Were you a teacher before?" Amara asked, half mocking, half curious. The woman gave a faint smile. "Before life turned me into a cleaner, I was a lecturer, English literature, University of Lagos." Amara froze, her smirk fading. "And now you scrub floors?" The woman's gaze didn't waver. "Sometimes life takes the crown from your head and gives you a broom instead. But wisdom doesn't disappear with a title." For the first time, Amara didn't know what to say. She muttered, "Whatever," and walked off, but her steps were slower, her heart heavier. That evening, sitting by her mirror, she stared at her test results again. Every red mark screaming failure. For once, she didn't feel like laughing it off. The cleaner's words had unsettled her more than she wanted to admit. That night, Amara whispered to herself, "Maybe she's right. Maybe I am drinking from shallow streams." But pride suppressed her curiosity. She would never admit it out loud. Not yet. Could a cleaner really hold the secret that every teacher, every tutor, and even her billionaire father had failed to unlock? Amara's pride returned in full force the next day. She told herself she would never let a cleaner, of all people, get into her head. She swaggered back into school, face glowing with expensive foundation, earrings sparkling, voice loud and commanding. But underneath her bravado, she was still unsettled. During economics class, the teacher returned another test, 18%. Her classmates chuckled quietly. This time, the humiliation burned deeper. As the bell rang, Amara stormed out, but she didn't take the front entrance. No. Her feet carried her again toward the back corridor. And once more, there she was, the cleaner. This time, not scrubbing floors but standing upright, hands folded, as though she had been expecting Amara. "You again," Amara muttered. "Why do I keep running into you?" The woman's eyes glimmered faintly. "Because your spirit is restless, and it keeps dragging you to the truth you are avoiding," Amara scoffed. "Truth, please. You know nothing about me." The cleaner tilted her head. "I know enough. You are drowning in wealth but starving in wisdom. You think you're untouchable, but you are more fragile than anyone in this school." Amara stiffened. "Careful how you talk to me. Do you know who my father is?" The woman's voice sharpened. "And do you know who you are? That is the real question." The words hit her like a slap. Amara turned to leave, but the woman's next words froze her. "Come tomorrow morning, 1 hour before classes, if you truly want to know the secret you keep failing to find." Amara laughed bitterly. "You think I'll take lessons from a cleaner?" The woman's face softened, but her tone stayed firm. "Not lessons, truth, but only if you're humble enough to leave your name at the door." That night, Amara replayed the words again and again. Her pride told her to ignore the invitation, but deep inside, something else whispered. What if she holds the key? Will Amara swallow her pride and show up at dawn, or will arrogance keep her chained to failure? Amara never thought she would actually show up. But at 6 a.m., long before the other students arrived, she found herself standing at the back gate of the school. The compound was quiet, mist curling around the empty playground. She shivered, partly from the cold and partly from the absurdity of what she was about to do. What was a billionaire's daughter doing sneaking around to meet a cleaner? Inside, the woman was already waiting, wiping down desks in a deserted classroom. She didn't look surprised when Amara walked in. Instead, she set down her rag and said calmly, "You came." Amara raised her chin. "Don't get it twisted. I'm only here because I'm curious." The woman chuckled softly. "Curiosity is the first step to wisdom." She gestured toward a chair. "Sit." Amara hesitated, then obeyed. The cleaner pulled a battered notebook from her bag and placed it before her. Its pages were worn, filled with underlined quotes, scribbled notes, and lessons that looked older than the school itself. From today, the woman said, you will write, not what you think your teachers want to hear, not what your father demands. You will write what you feel, what you fear, what you hope. 1 page every morning. Amara frowned. Right? That's your big secret? That's ridiculous. The woman's eyes narrowed, her voice sharp. And yet you've tried every other shortcut. Money, tutors, arrogance, and still you fail. So maybe it's time to try what looks ridiculous. For a long moment, Amara said nothing. Then with a sigh, she picked up the pen. The first words felt like fire on her fingers. I don't know who I am without my father's money. She slammed the pen down, angry at herself for writing such a raw truth. But the cleaner only nodded. Good. The well is deeper than you think. That morning was the start of something Amara didn't yet understand. She walked into class later with the notebook in her bag, feeling a strange weight and a strange lightness at the same time. For the first time in her life, she wasn't just a billionaire's daughter. She was a student of someone invisible. What happens when the secret lessons of a cleaner begin to clash with the public image of a billionaire's daughter? Days turned into weeks. Each morning before classes, Amara met the woman, whose name, she finally learned, was Mrs. Grace Okafor. The sessions were simple but unsettling. Instead of teaching formulas or dates, Mrs. Grace asked piercing questions. What does courage look like to you? Why do you think silence can be louder than words? What is success if no one is clapping for you? Amara began to change, though she tried to hide it. She started reading novels she once ignored, scribbling reflections in the notebook, and even asking questions in class. Teachers were stunned. Classmates whispered. Some mocked. Look at Amara pretending to be serious now, sneered Tunde, the class joker. But Amara didn't fire back with insults as she usually did. Instead, she bit her tongue and kept writing. At home, her father noticed the subtle changes. One evening, as they sat in the dining room, he said, Your grades, I hear they've improved slightly. Which tutor is responsible this time? Amara froze. Should she tell him the truth? No. He would never understand. She forced a smile and replied, Just me, Daddy. I'm trying harder. Chief Richard eyed her suspiciously, then muttered, Keep it that way. Don't embarrass me again. But trouble was brewing. Some of the school staff began to whisper about Mrs. Grace spending too much time with Amara. The assistant principal, a stern man who valued reputation above all else, confronted her one afternoon. You are a cleaner here, not a teacher. Stay within your job description. Mrs. Grace only smiled faintly and said, Sometimes saving a child's future is more important than mopping floors. When Amara heard about it, her blood boiled. They're threatening you because of me? Mrs. Grace shook her head. No, child. They are afraid of what knowledge does. It frees people, and free people are harder to control. That night, Amara wrote furiously in her notebook. I don't want to be a puppet anymore. I want to be someone who matters. For the first time, the words didn't feel like a lie. But what happens when her father discovers who has been teaching her and decides to put an end to it? It was bound to happen. Secrets never stay hidden for long, especially in a school where gossip travels faster than wildfire in Harmattan season. One Friday evening, Chief Richard's personal assistant received an anonymous call. Sir, your daughter has been spending time with the school cleaner. Every morning, every afternoon, not safe for your reputation. Within hours, the information reached Chief Richard himself. That night, Amara returned home from school to find her father waiting in the living room. The air was tense. His glass of whiskey sat untouched, a sign that something serious was brewing. Sit, he commanded. Amara obeyed nervously. Tell me, who has been teaching you? He demanded. Amara hesitated. Her father's eyes narrowed. Don't lie to me. She swallowed hard, then whispered, Mrs. Grace, the cleaner. The silence that followed was volcanic. Chief Richard's jaw tightened. Then, in a voice low but seething, he thundered, A cleaner? You mean to tell me my daughter, heir to the Williams Empire, is learning from a woman who scrubs toilets? Are you trying to disgrace me? Amara's lips trembled, but her voice was firm. She's more of a teacher than anyone I've ever had. She makes me think, Daddy. She sees me. Her father rose, pacing like a lion. You sound like a fool. That woman is beneath you. If anyone finds out, it will ruin this family's name. You are forbidden to see her again. He stormed out before she could reply, his words hanging in the air like chains. Later that night, Amara cried silently into her pillow, but as she wiped her tears, she whispered, No, I won't stop. She's the only one who's ever believed in me. Pride and defiance surged through her veins. For the first time in her life, Amara felt the stirrings of courage. Will Amara obey her father and abandon the one person who gave her purpose, or risk everything to keep learning? Amara's decision came swiftly. The next morning, instead of going straight to her classroom, she sneaked into the abandoned library wing of the school. The air was thick with dust, cobwebs clung to the shelves, but to her, it felt like freedom. Mrs. Grace was already there. Arranging old textbooks on a desk, she looked up with a small smile. "You came," Amara nodded firmly. "My father told me to stay away from you, but I can't, I won't, I need this." Mrs. Grace studied her for a long moment, then said softly, "Then we'll do it here, quietly. This will be our classroom." And so, a revolution began in secret. Every day after school, Amara slipped away from her friends and met Mrs. Grace in the dusty library. At first it was just her. Then one afternoon, she brought along her friend Anita, who struggled in biology. Then came Chuka, the class clown, who secretly failed every subject. Slowly, the hidden classroom grew. They weren't just learning equations or grammar. Mrs. Grace taught them how to think. She gave them Baldwin and Achebe. She challenged them with questions that textbooks never asked. Why does society fear those who clean? Why do people worship those who destroy? What is true power? To own buildings or to build people? The students argued, debated, laughed, and even cried. The abandoned library came alive again, not with dust, but with voices hungry for meaning. But whispers began to spread. Students who weren't part of the group mocked Amara. "Look at the billionaire's daughter, hanging with cleaners." Videos circulated of her sitting cross-legged on the library floor, notebook in hand, Mrs. Grace guiding her like a mentor. When one clip reached the assistant principal, alarms went off. "This is unacceptable," he barked. "A cleaner teaching students? It must stop immediately." Yet Amara didn't shy away. For the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of scandal. She wasn't afraid of failing. She was afraid of losing the only place she felt alive. But how long can a secret classroom survive before the system crushes it? The secret classroom could not remain hidden forever. One rainy afternoon, Amara arrived at school to find tension in the air. Students whispered in corridors, teachers avoided her gaze, and the school principal himself waited outside her class. "Amara Williams, come with me." Her heart pounded. She followed him into the office where her father sat in a dark suit, his face thunderous. Next to him sat Mrs. Grace, her uniform crumpled, her eyes calm but defiant. The principal cleared his throat. "We have received complaints. Parents are concerned that their children are being influenced by unqualified personnel." He shot a glance at Mrs. Grace. Chief Richard slammed his palm on the table. "I told you to stay away from this woman. And yet, here we are, dragged into shame." Amara's voice trembled, but she stood tall. "Daddy, she's the only reason I've improved. She's not unqualified. She was a lecturer. She's taught me more about life and learning than anyone else ever has." The room went silent. The principal coughed awkwardly. Chief Richard leaned forward, his eyes like knives. "Do you understand what you are saying? You are humiliating me, defending a cleaner in public. If you don't stop this nonsense, you lose everything. Your allowance, your inheritance, your place in this family." Tears welled in Amara's eyes, but her voice grew steadier. "Maybe I need to lose everything to finally discover who I am." Her father's face hardened. "Then consider yourself on your own." He stormed out, leaving the room in icy silence. The principal sighed. "Mrs. Grace, I'm sorry, but we have no choice. You're dismissed, effective immediately." Amara gasped. "You can't." Mrs. Grace simply rose, smoothed her apron and whispered, "Child, remember what I told you. Knowledge frees people." She left without looking back. Amara stood there, fists clenched, her heart breaking. For the first time, she realized this wasn't just about her grades anymore. It was about a war bigger than her name. Without her mentor, can Amara carry the fire alone, or will the system crush her spirit for good? The days after Mrs. Grace's dismissal felt like a funeral. The secret library was empty, the notebooks cold, and Amara drifted like a ghost through the school. But then, one announcement changed everything. The end-of-year speech contest. Theme: what it means to win in life. The prize: scholarships, recognition, and a chance to speak before the entire community. For most, it was another competition. For Amara, it was war. She locked herself in her room, scribbling furiously for nights. Her essay wasn't filled with quotes from textbooks. It was raw, personal, a tribute. She titled it, "The Secret of Learning." On the day of the contest, the school auditorium was packed. Parents in glittering attire, students in polished uniforms, teachers lined up like judges. Amara walked onto the stage, not in designer gowns but in a simple navy dress, holding the battered notebook Mrs. Grace had once given her. "My name is Amara Williams," she began, her voice shaking but strong. "Some of you know me as the billionaire's daughter who failed every test. But today, I stand here not as a failure, but as someone transformed. By a teacher you never recognized. She was not a professor here. She had no office. She carried a mop. But she carried something more powerful: wisdom." Gasps echoed through the hall. Amara's eyes scanned the audience, unflinching. "She taught me that winning in life is not about wealth, fame, or even grades. It is about transformation. It is about becoming someone worth remembering, even if no one is clapping for you. Systems may silence voices like hers, but her lessons live in me. So what does it mean to win in life? It means seeing others, lifting others, and knowing that dignity is never found in money. It is found in truth." When she finished, silence reigned. Then one clap, then another. Within seconds, the entire hall rose in a standing ovation. Teachers wiped tears, students cheered, even some parents bowed their heads. At the back of the hall, hidden beneath a headscarf, stood Mrs. Grace. Her eyes glistened as she smiled. Amara nearly broke into tears on stage. The speech spread beyond the school. Social media buzzed. Billionaire's daughter credits cleaner for her success. Newspapers covered it. Mrs. Grace was reinstated, this time not as a cleaner, but as a guest lecturer at a local college. Amara passed her exams with pride, not pity. And in time, she founded the Grace Foundation, a center where underprivileged children could learn freely, guided by truth and dignity. Years later, an old family elder who had watched her transformation said, "A child who only eats with a golden spoon will never know the sweetness of humility. But the one who tastes the dust of the earth will cherish every grain of wisdom." And that, dear viewers, is the real lesson. In African culture, true greatness is not measured by wealth, but by the lives we uplift. What lesson did you learn from this story? Let us know in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful African stories that inspire and transform.